production costs so that the end users can benefit at the end of the day. So he's passionate about improving industrial healthcare outcomes by ensuring access to medical oxygen, especially for those in need. Karibu, Dr. Wali.
I will stand below the podium because of my short height, so don't mind. Good morning, everybody. I am by all means not an authority in this discussion. I'm also a student. I keep learning every day. And I learn by observation, and I learn by interaction. I learn by networking, but it's a difficult subject. It's a difficult subject because we are all experiencing it, whether negatively or positively, in our lives every day. And we thought, and Eric and team thought, we should, bring it up and interact with people and discuss about it and pick their minds. I'm also not a proponent of PowerPoint presentations. I believe the PowerPoint presentation remove the power from the point. People start reading the PowerPoints and they don't focus on your presentation. So I normally discourage that. I occasionally lecture in universities, and students always complain, you don't have notes to write. I said, yeah, you don't have to. Just listen to me and you can supplement that with more reading. But listen, interact, grasp, ask questions, and you will get the learning at the end of the day. Anyway, two important subjects today with respect to leadership. One is ethical and one is governance. They are used intertwinedly. Many other names, synonyms for ethical, I think Joe will tell you. Integrity, honesty, doing the right thing, accountability, transparency, trust, respect. They are all different names for being ethical. And I mean, all of you and most of you are experts in this space. This is not something that you could read from textbooks. This is something that you got to experience. This is something what you have to live by it. And they always say it starts with you. Just like my Sheikh manager always says, safety starts with you. Simply in this subject as well, ethical behavior starts with us. I mean, I normally give this example to forums on a subject like this. Is sometimes when I drive and with my kids and I stop at the red robot, the red traffic, and somebody's beeping at the back. They want me to jump the traffic, and I'm with the kids. I said, Dad, why don't you? I said, no. You're creating a precedent. There's a reason why it's red, and you're supposed to stop. It's okay, let the person hoot, or he can overtake. So, if you were to behave that way and jump that traffic like today, when that guy becomes older, he'll behave the same way. So it's part of a reflection of a behavior, and it starts from you. It's painful to see our beautiful country, and Joe has mentioned that we must appreciate where we are. I mean, no matter how many challenges we have, I think we are doing much better than most countries. Being in Zim, where a supermarket like Carrefour probably has firewood to sell, at least we get bread and milk. Maybe it's taxed highly, but at least we still get it. We're doing much better. We're doing much better. We must appreciate what we have, but don't keep quiet. Speak your mind. If you see things going wrong, just say it. You might be bit by DCI and disappear, but it's okay. I hope they will slap you of it and then release you. But speak your mind, because if you don't, then the assumption is that things are okay, and live with it. So we have gaps. And as the panelist mentioned, the MC mentioned that it's easy to pick on the public sector because they are visible, they're always in the media and all that. But even in the private sector, we have a lot of issues. We get tempted to pay something to get an LPO. We get tempted to pay something to get paid. We get tempted to get some publicity. It's not easy. I sometimes talk to my team, by the way, Maranga, who also works closely with us. We have two other employees who are at the stand outside. It's not easy. We sometimes argue that has it become part of our culture that we cannot operate without something small or something big. It's frustrating. If your values do not allow you to operate in such a manner, then it becomes so difficult and frustrating to operate. And for us in the healthcare sector, it's even more worse. We aspire to provide a product that is superior, not because we want to deliver a profit. It's because we believe it's the right thing to do. It's going to be used by a human being, and that human being could be a child, could be a mother, could be a sister. And I experienced that first time when I was working for BOC as a country manager in Uganda. One of my sons was born there, and when he was a minute old, they used my oxygen to clean his nose, throat, to remove the whatever from the womb. And had I been doing shortcuts with my oxygen, I would have told them, keep it aside, let me get you something better. Oh, just because he was your child? What is somebody else's child, not a child? So it starts with you, and God tests you in a way to tell you that are you doing the right thing, and let me test you. So it's your values, it's the way you are being brought up, is the way you will behave in your afterlife, in your this life and the afterlife. I think we've forgotten our fundamentals, our Sunday school teachings about honesty, about integrity, about respect. I think we live in a world now where those degraded speak false things, they get more claps, they get more votes, they get more offices, they get more resources. So it's unfortunate. We are all talking about Trump and the way he has a big mouth, but you know what? He was voted by Americans. He's supposed to serve the Americans first. Who said he's supposed to serve us? So if he stops US aid, unfortunately, it has affected a lot of people. But he's doing the right thing. He's doing what he promises people. So yes, the manner in which he's doing it probably is not right. Somebody will say his emotional intelligence is very low, maybe. But he's very smart. He's always been a deal maker. If he cracks this deal between Ukraine and Russia, that would be something. Americans will benefit, lives will be saved, and there will be access to raw materials. There's a lot of product that comes out from that part of the world that is affecting supply chain now. So it will be a plus. Yes, maybe the Americans might get their rare earth minerals, but what is the end result? The question is it being done above board? Is it being done honestly? Is it being done with full transparency? So my appeal today is that no one can teach you to be honest. No one can teach you to be observing integrity and honesty. It has to be inculcated. You have to first accept that what you're doing, whether it is right or not. You've got to question every move of yours, what you're communicating, what you're going to do, how will it affect the opposite person. It is up to you to make that choice. And our government officials, they normally go for governance workshops in Mombasa and taxpayers' money and all that stuff. But when they come back, it's not reflecting in the behavior. And the same thing happens in the private sector. You do team buildings and all those workshops, but when you come back to your desks, your own procurement manager is telling a supplier that, look, if you want me to supply you, then you have to take care of me. It's not reflecting in our behavior. So I think it's a behavioral thing. It is something that we got to change, and experts like Joe will tell you, and Mary Pino, that it's something that we have to have a mindset change, sort of. HR practitioners play a huge role in that. We cannot be sitting in meetings and talking about it over and over again. We have to practice it, and it starts with leaders. If I was behaving oddly, and my team, views me doing funny things, and when I catch one of them doing those funny things, I'll have no more moral responsibility to ask them the question. They say, but you did it. You're doing it yourself, why are you asking me? And that is why, somebody was saying because there are too many mortgages and car loans, that's why people can't speak. The other thing is that because people are misbehaving, and that's why they can't speak. You don't, certainly you lose your moral standing in the society such that even if you see something wrong, you shy away from speaking against it because you feel that somebody else will point a finger at you. So my appeal as a nobody to the audience today is, let's try hard, let's be principled, let's lead by our values. It might be difficult, you might lose business, you might lose tenders, you might lose LPOs, you might not be paid for 2 years. Joanne will tell you, our debtors book, we've not been paid for 2 years by some public sector spaces we don't want to mention for fear of litigation, but so be it. Did you render a service? That's the important thing. Did you play your role? Did you provide a product that was superior? Did you provide a product that what you've billed for is what you provided? Or did you undersupply? Did you underfill? Did you play around with the purity of the product? Did you play around with the sales? Because if you were to close a tap, hospital, it will tell the patients go home. Either they'll refer them to another hospital which has the product, or they'll tell them go home, and if you die, bad luck. But so we continue doing the right thing. We get beaten, we get penalized, we struggle with our cash flows, we work lean. But you know what, at the end of the day, when I go back to bed and my team, we sleep in peace. We know we did the right thing, we know we saved a life. COVID for us, by the way, it was a business opportunity, we didn't make anything actually, but it was a business opportunity to save lives. We saved lives, Joe. I normally put my phone on silent, I don't off at night, just in case there are messages or something I can check in the morning. But during COVID, it was on. Once or twice the wife said, who is it? I want to see. At 3 in the morning, who is calling? And then after that, she stopped. Because you used to get calls at 3 in the morning, and we are not your customer, we don't have an account with you. Please look for Oxygen for us. If you don't, we will not blame you. But if you don't, then we might lose 2-3 people on high-flowing ICU. So we had to do whatever we did. And you know what? God blessed us generously. Because then we went for a fundraising international, and Joe, we couldn't come to Stanbic ETC because you guys are declaring 30% growth with high interest. So we had to borrow internationally, and we did. We raised $20 million. My team, I'm proud of you for supporting me in that endeavor. We raised $20 million. We're putting up a state-of-the-art medical oxygen plant at Tatu City in Kiambu County, which is about 25 kilometers from here. It's going to be the first plant in 60 years, Tony, that has come into the country. We had a very old, rugged plant from a company called BOC. I don't mind if they sue me because I have facts. Very, very old, 51-year-old plant, grossly inefficient in terms of energy usage, grossly inefficient in terms of maintenance, etc. What that resulted is that the price of the product is so high at the moment. And you're talking about price, that a product that is supposed to save a patient life. Problem, affordability is a problem, quality issues. So we went out of the way, we borrowed 50% of that money, 50% is equity, and we are putting up this plant, and we're very proud of that. We are proud because we believe that we'll save lives. We are proud because we believe we will improve accessibility to this product. We are proud because we believe we'll improve affordability to this product. At least 30 to 40% of the price will crush. And we are not here to compete in commercial basis. We are a social enterprise for sustainability. I know loans and grants will dry up at some point, especially now with the geopolitics going on in the world. We want to put up something that is more sustainable. But it is something that we aspire, and we work very hard for it. It wasn't easy to tap money from the international market, especially being a very small outfit with very little or no collateral. The due diligences were tough. And guess what? The only reason why we passed those tough due diligences was because we were transparent. If we did not have a policy, we said we don't have it, but we will get it. Probably we don't need it in the current dispensation, but we'll get it. And they were tough, Joe. I mean, guys only take 6 to 12 months to raise funds. We took 36 to 48 months. But it was worth it. It was worth it because then you created trust that these guys are dependable. You know, they speak from their heart. Their integrity is unquestionable. And at some point, when we were tapping American money, somebody from the CIA called, and it's the second incident, by the way. The first incident was deep during DDs. They said, one of your board members shares a name with a drug peddler from Malindi. You heard of that? So we need an affidavit to say, yes, he shares a name, but he's not the one. And secondly, the second one was very recent. You know, and I don't want to mention name, but one of the board members who joined in the new dispensation was from a company that was under investigation by IFC and World Bank and all that stuff. He had to defend himself, but he had to walk away. And I believe that is the right way to do things. Protect your taxpayers' money. We work hard for these taxes, don't we? I mean, I feel bad when I pay slip every month something is cut out, man, just for no reason, and I don't see the service coming in. So the Americans, the other ones are from Finland, British, Swiss, Canadians, the guys who have invested, they respect their taxpayers' money. They respect, by respecting your taxpayers' hard-earned money, it means you're respecting your citizens. Isn't that part of being ethical? Respect is part of ethics because it borders on values, it borders on your personal principles. But here we play around, you know. The Shah Schiff money has gone to somebody's personal account, so be it. You know, but it was taxpayers' money. I have money where, okay, no investigation, no forensic audit, went. NSF, same thing. We have no resources. Our country is 3/4 semi-arable. Water is a problem. Okay, even Mount Kilimanjaro was carved out to Tanzania. If you look at our map, they even carved it out. Yeah? We have no minerals, nothing. What do we have? Nothing. We have no land which is arable, we have no minerals. The ones that are there, they are not commercial, validity. But what do we have? We have people. You know, Joe and Faith and everybody mentioned resilience. We have people who believe that they can add value. Do you know some of the best manpower and workforce in the world comes from Kenya? If you go to the US, most of the guys there in the top position are Kenyans. In Uganda, Tanzania, don't even ask. Most of them are Kenyans. In South Africa, the same thing. Joe is a big example for us, and many others that are out there doing good service for the country. The only thing that we have is the people. If we cannot respect your own people, then what is the use of becoming a leader? These are the guys who trusted you. They gave you a mandate. You got to serve them. And that is why I say, and people might not like it, that's why I say Trump is funny. They trusted him, they gave him a mandate, and he's saying, I'm going to serve you. I'm going to get you more investments, I'm going to get you more factories, I'm going to get you more jobs, I'm going to improve healthcare. Whether he'll do it or not, that's something else. But at least he's a start. At least he's doing something for his people. Are we? It's a question mark. So in our small way, as a small company, we are doing what we can because we believe it's the right thing to do. We went out and borrowed money, no grants, no donations, because we believe that if nothing has happened in 60 years, something has to happen now. It's not easy. We have a lot of bruises and scratches that we are hiding with a lot of lipstick and whatever. But we feel good. We feel good about it. We feel proud about it. We sleep better. You know, we spend less time with our families, but they're happy. And that's all that matters. I mean, my daughter can't ask me, Dad, where do you get your money from? I can explain to her. Can you account for your wealth? It's a shame when I see those guys getting interviewed in Parliament and say, what is your net worth? And somebody says 1 billion. Shame, man, 1 billion. I don't even know how many zeros a billion has. And then you ask him, what is the source of the wealth? When you say lifestyle audit, you should mean what lifestyle audit is. Where did you get your 1 billion from? You've been earning 500,000, assuming you're at the top. How many years will it take for you to reach that 1 billion? Where did you get your seed capital to build your business? No, if you're serious. You know, the low guys who love fish, and I love fish as well, you know, they know what fish is good. Where does the fish start rotting from? From the head. The fish starts rotting from the head. You know, so the buck stops with the leader. Some years back there was a fire in some discotheque in some Europe, and the country's prime minister resigned. Yeah. Even British Prime Minister, I think he broke the COVID rules. The other guy with funny hair, what is his name? Boris Johnson or something. He had to resign because he broke COVID rules by partying outside. That is the kind of responsible leadership you want. Isn't that ethics? It is. Because you are honest with yourself and you're honest with your electorate. Can we do that? Of course. Are we so different from them? Of course not. With due respect to a foreign lady, you know, they call us third world and developing world and less developing world and medium developing world. It's derogatory. What do you mean by first world and third world? It's the same world. We breathe the same oxygen. We are under the same sky. Who coined these terms? Why do we allow ourselves to be mistreated like that? When the USAID funding was stopped, there was panic in the country. Oh. And then the next day, there was more allocation for office of the president and the vice president. And then you say, but did we even miss this money? Do we even need it? Why do you create a dependency syndrome? That, oh, if the aid stops, the country will stop flowing. We have the power within ourselves to add value in the country, to add value to our lives. There's so much going on that we should focus on. Technological changes are becoming rapid. Some jobs will become redundant very soon. What are we doing about it? Some resource areas will dry soon. I mean, the Middle East is already working on a 50-year plan where if the oil was to finish tomorrow, they have other resources other industries to bank on. They're focusing the service industry and the manufacturing industry. Why can't we think that way? We've been in an election mode for the past 23 years. And campaigns have not stopped. And those campaigns cost money. Whose money? Your money. My money, taxpayers' money. Why can't we just behave normally? Why can't we follow what the Sunday school guy taught us? Or the Friday or the Saturday, so many denominations we have. Why can't we inculcate that in our lives? And you know, it starts from us. It starts from the home. If you jump the traffic light, that guy might think, oh, this is the right thing to do. And they'll do that tomorrow and they get bashed. And you'll say, but Dad did it. Or you see a parking ticket, instead of paying the parking ticket, you give him 50 bob, Angalia. The guy will do the same thing. Or to win that tender, you do something and... So, my topic was more of a reflection. My topic was more on rethinking the way we undertake our businesses, the way we interact with ourselves, whether in the private sector, whether in the NGO, whether in the service sector. It's a reflection. We're not doing well as we speak. We're not doing well. Our service levels are compromised. Our product quality is compromised because we have to look after some other issues. Our regulators are not doing their jobs. We have about 10 companies in the gas space, only 10 companies in the whole country. And the amount of shortcuts happening there are unbelievable. We have regulators that can't manage only 10 companies in the whole country. We have CABS, we have PPB, we have weights and measures, we have NEMA, we are there. Patients are getting substandard product in the name of cheaper price. You know how dangerous it is that if your procurement guy was given kitu kidogo and they accept a substandard product in terms of a half-filled cylinder, it can cost a life. because that doctor will dispense medical oxygen liters per minute to that patient depending on how critical that patient is. And then they will measure the liters per minute to the cylinder quantity. They say, oh, this thing should last for an hour, if it was fully filled. Now you don't know, as a doctor or as a nurse, then that cylinder was 3/4 or half filled. It was halfway cylinder, oxygen finished. We have no sense of responsibility because of something small, or playing around with product purity. You know, the lesser the purity, the lesser the input cost. So you say, it's okay. And you give them industrial grade oxygen diseases, and now you're giving them more toxicity. What is that in a lump sum? It's lack of responsibility, it's lack of ethics, lack of values, and importantly, lack of respect for that fellow human being. If you have money, you take your patients out of the country. Why? Because you don't believe your own system. Why can't we make our own system better? Okay. So this subject that Eric has challenged me with, and Eric, thanks for that. I don't know why you picked me for this, but interesting subject, painful as it is, because we are seeing the results. But we're not doing very well. You know, Ms. Kariuki mentioned about our GDP and our inflation and our exchange rate is good. But who knows if they are managed or not? They might be managed. Is our growth inclusive? If you're doing 4% now and you want to do 6%, is the growth inclusive? Is it filtering down to the bottom of the pyramid? No. I know people that probably are surviving on 1 meal a day. I know people that only go to the hospital when they are at a critical stage. I know people whose children are at home because they have been thrown out lack of school fees. And they are fellow Kenyans. They breathe the same air. They walk the same road. Why can't we respect our professions and do service to the country? 52 million people and we are struggling to feed ourselves. 52 million. What if it was India or China? 1.4 billion. The policy makers in India and China, and I always tell my team, must be the best in the world. I don't know if they're the best in the world, but they must be the most respected and responsible people in the world. If you're a minister of food or agriculture, you're making a policy for 1.4 billion people that they must be fed. If you're a minister of health, you have to make policies to ensure there is medical cover for 1.4 billion people. Water, housing, sanitation, security, education. 1.4 billion. 52 million is a problem for us. These guys, one city is 40, 50 million. We have a whole country. Why can't we style up? We can't style up because some people somewhere decided to misbehave. I mean, a vocal person like Joe will tell you, you can come and pick me up and beat me up for saying the truth, but that's the truth. I mean, for me, I have full respect for the Gen Zs. They have guts of steel to go out and say, hey, this is not the right way. And I respect them. I know people are saying they are challenging people. Yes, they are, because they say what is the truth. I can't work 8 to 5. They say, you look at me, my face in the office, or you want to see productivity? You give me my KPIs, I will fulfill them. So how I do it, where I do it from, is it your problem? They say, and you know what, you got to respect them because they're 65% of our population at some point. So I would say, let's respect ourselves. Let's be more vocal. Let's hold people accountable. You know, if somebody calls you names which you are called anyway, it's okay, fine, so long as your conscience is right. Somebody says conscience is a very expensive luxury nowadays. If you have no conscience, you see somebody hit by a boda, you just pass that person. You don't stop and say, okay, let me help, because our conscience is gone. We don't feel that pain for the opposite person. You know? When I was listening to Joe, I was saying, the first thing came to mind, Joanne, was, why can't he be an economic advisor to the government? We need people like him. The guys who are there, I don't know. We need people. Why can't they tap guys like we have the people? He is not from Mars. or Quinoa. I mean, Quinoa, the level of the 4 C's she's mentioned, if she was to bring the 4 C's into the government circle, oh, wow. We need guys like you. But, to get that position, as Joe said, maybe you have to, I applied, jokingly, I applied for one of the positions. Was it cabinet secretary? What was it that was advertised? One of these senior positions. And I got a call, we've been shortlisted, but you have to give me $1 million shilling for you to application move to the next level. Because you had 7 issues that you have to take. Integrity index. So they tick. Say, this thing, we can't trash it away. They call $1 million shilling for your whatever to be processed. Guy, I don't need it. I wanted to serve because I believe that's something to value add. If you don't need it, it's okay. Somebody else will pay me, and maybe Eric has paid me for standing here. Sorry, did I break the... No, sometimes you see, sometimes you do pro bono, but sometimes to pay your bills, you say, but you see. But the right way. The right way. Not to say, oh, if you don't pay me, I will not come, or you negotiate the right way. Man has got to eat, isn't it? So, let's not blame the society. What has happened is it's our own making. We voted these guys. Our churches and sheikhs and priests and whatever are also misbehaving. We saw a church broken down the other day because of some molestation. Another one was given 20 million. He can't account for it. Those are the institutions where we are supposed to get such kind of values. But if those institutions are deteriorating, then there is a serious cause of concern. In the older days, there were 3 professions that were highly respected. One was a teacher. You see a teacher, you change the route. Malimu. Yeah. Second one was a lawyer. The holder of justice. That person speaks the truth, fights for justice. The third one was a doctor. They have taken the autocratic oath to save lives. Today, those 3 professions are commercialized. Doctor, my friend, he doesn't care even if you're dying. You pay the deposit first. Then they come. Some of the richest professions in the world are doctors. Teacher, school, if you want the best education, you got to pay for it. Opposite. Lawyers, my price. I will convince everybody that you didn't murder. And they do it. They know the weaknesses in the law. They manipulate them scot-free. This other ex-governor that was released the other day, he stole, I think, 500 billion or 500 million, and his fine was 10%. It's a nice business. 500 million you steal, you pay 50 million, you're out. You have 450 million net profit. What is this, guys? So the institutions that we looked up to, Joe, they're the ones who are letting us down. Our churches and our mosques and our temples, our schools that are supposed to become commercial. They teach you less in class so you can take tuition in the evening and pay them more. So it's not a subject that is easy and you list the 4 C's and the 10 KPIs and all that. I can't do that. But it's a subject that touches on all our lives. Right from being a responsible father to a responsible leader. and I'm proud of guys like Joe and LG and Sifuna and Omtata. Okay, you bash me, but I'll say the truth. Bash me, it's okay. That's what you want. And they're all human beings. They breathe the same hewa oxygen. They're the same guys, same. Their sweat doesn't smell different, it's the same. If they eat biryani and you eat spuma, you still shit the same. We're all the same. There's nothing special, but they took it up to themselves that I will not misbehave. I'm a responsible human being, a responsible citizen. That's all they did. You cannot compromise their values, their ethics, their principles. I don't have a price. I will deliver regardless of whether I am compensated or not, because I believe it's the right thing to do. My safety manager normally tells us, their licenses and compliances and all that. We must do it. I said, yes, we must get those licenses and compliances, but are we doing it because they told us to do it, or are we doing it because it's the right thing to do? Fire audit, OSHA, NEMA, it's the right thing to do. You don't want to pollute your environment. You don't want to create a fatality for somebody. Yes, there are regulations, they want you to get the license, but is it you're doing it because you want to comply, or you're doing it because you know it's the right thing to do? That's the differentiator. So I'd like to end my talk, and I'm sorry I'm being a bit boring. It was a heavy subject. It touches on all of us in some way. My appeal on behalf of my team and behalf of myself is, let's behave more responsibly. Let's respect ourselves first, then we'll respect others. And let's communicate as much as possible. Speak up. Whether you're heard or not is another thing, but speak up. The nation is a good example where he came from. They have been criticized so many times for being vocal, so be it. They said we are going to bring out the truth, and they do. Whether you like me or not, I have to say it. I will not gloss my message because I have to appeal some. So I'm sorry if I took longer than expected. Thanks.
I like the silence in the room. I have a feeling we're all guilty of something he mentioned. Like even those times when there's somebody you have in the office, you always, at about 10 o'clock, you call a guy and tell a guy, hey, man, you go and get me some mandazis from that supermarket. Then while you're at it, get yourself one. Are you doing it because you want to buy the guy breakfast, or you're doing it because you're trying to entice the guy to go and get you breakfast? It starts with the smallest thing. No, my baby, sweetie, just go and take a quick shower. I have something, I'll give you something after you finish. Starts thinking, hey, I need to be doing things, I'll be getting famous back. But it's a deep conversation. I have been a victim of, tribalism in this country is crazy. So there's, every other tribe has a caucus. So I get a call and I'm invited to I'm Luya, so I'm invited for a Luya caucus that was being presided by a governor in preparation for the next year's elections, and they are making promises and saying, now they want to employ the elites, educated, exposed guys to the county positions of CECs. And the conversations are so nice until the guy leaves and leaves you these guys, and then they tell you, but you have to invest in it. The guy tells you, your name has been floated many times. Just put it to the governor's kitty 5 million shillings, and you guarantee you'll get it in 3 years. What is the guy telling you? So by the time I get into it, I know I have to return my initial investment fast. So I start cutting deals. It is a very deep conversation that must be taken very seriously. And we appreciate you, Dr. Wali. Please, let's appreciate Dr. Wali. Now we are moving on to the next phase of things. I had spoken to a few people to go to certain tables. We are going on to our panel conversations, but I want to do them in a certain way. We have 5 panelists. There's going to be 5 tables. Each table will pick a panelist they can ask a question. So that mtu asiseme, tumeprepare panelists kujibu hapana. These guys are intellectuals, man. they pick it as they move, and that is what we're trying to learn and pick up. But you guys cannot ask Dr. Wali anything. So you pick somebody else here. That table, you pick somebody, you'll ask a question, the same to this one, the same to that one, and that one. Those are 5. So as I invite them to the podium, please think about the question that you're going to ask to one of the guys, all right? So allow me to first call on the podium Japheth. I'll start with you because you've been seated for a while. You need to stretch your legs, so you can start off. Please, Japheth, as he comes, let's appreciate him. Please I'd like you to take this particular seat. Then next, I'd like to invite Mary. After Mary's conversation, I feel like telling her, please take any seat you want. Otherwise, it might go a different direction. Then I'd like to invite Liz. Kindly, let's appreciate Liz. And you can see they don't have any writing material, so they've not prepared for anything, okay? We are trying to keep it as transparent as possible. So please will have to share the mics here. Then allow me to invite Joe. Karibu. And then of course, Dr. Wali. I know you've been standing for a while, but yeah, you'll be, I would like to check the last seat on that side, if you do not mind. So this table, Mike, I wanted you to join that table. So the table for Mike is going to ask Japheth a question. Okay? Japheth, all mutual. You had these conversations earlier, so think of a question you'd like to answer, to ask him. The table to my extreme right, you'll ask Mary a question from the conversations that we had. This table, you'll ask Mr. Joe a question. You can agree what question it's going to be. On this table, you'll ask Dr. Wali a question. Governance, ethics, compliance, corruption. What does technology and AI mean for corruption? I don't know. And this table that belongs to Dr. Wali as well, we'll ask Liz a question. And we are going to start, as I sit down, please, I hope you've thought of the question, so that we can start off. Allow me to get my... Are we ready? All right. So we can start with Mike's table. What is your question, Mike? Sorry.
Mr. Gaba. Yeah, my name is Rowa. Now, risk management assumes control. It assumes control. In a world where we have a lot of volatility, and I think Joe has alluded to that, Mary has alluded to that, Terry has also alluded to that. Sorry, I forgot your name, you did that as well. Risk management assumes control. In this world that we talk about, volatile, complex, non-linear, can control really happen within organizations? Trump has happened, COVID happened, Ruto happened. Can we really say we have control in our organizations based on the risk and the academy that is behind it?
Thank you. Can I go ahead?
Yes, please go ahead.
And thanks for that relevant question to the discussion. If you look at the question of the topic of risk, the first step is, as I said in my presentation, is to identify potential risks and rank them or rate them based on how probable are they to the business from an impact perspective. So then, after identifying the risk, the next step is mitigations. And that is where the control comes. And then the last phase of it is looking at opportunities, because what we do say is that risk presents opportunities. So identification of risk and classifying them as how probable they are to the business, whether now or in 6 months or 2 years. Then the second phase is mitigations, which now calls for controls. And controls, in comes the opportunity. Because the story is always being told, and we use this in the office. Our chief risk officer used to work for the bank. So she gives us a story that in her first employment, when she was employed in the bank, she thought that, you know, as part of controls, when clients walk in, she'll ask you, do you have your identification document? Because then all banks required customers, new customers, to have identification, you know, things that you would be able to identify a customer with. And she thought that was all our work, controls. Just ensure that controls are in place. If a customer does not have the required documentation, tell them, please go back and bring us this documentation. Then in comes a bank that said, you've walked into our office, come in. All this documentation the others are asking, we will take it there. All they need is to buy a camera. So you didn't have to carry a passport size photo, and you didn't have to carry a copy of your ID. So while they were enforcing controls, they created a big opportunity. As opposed to standing at the door and saying, these are the controls, and this you have to comply, else we will not be able to proceed. And we know the story of Equity, because that was Equity and the others. So to your question is that, yes, the control element has to be there in risk mitigation, but as leaders then we look at what are the opportunities in control, because you cannot mitigate or plan for risk without controls. But controls should not be at the forefront. The issue is, what are the opportunities coming out of the controls? Thank you.
Thank you very much. If I'm hearing you right, you're saying it is good to have controls, but we also have to be very careful that controls do not have efficiency at the end of the day, because then that stifles business. And it's not healthy at all for anyone. Thank you very much. Here, I think the question that is coming from this table is going to Mary first, and I'll hand over the mic.
We have two questions here. One of it, if you allow us. My name is Galenya Kiaramba from the Agriculture Sector Network. My question is, do success factors work where employees are required to fill in their appraisals, and for how long, what should be the regularity of them filling those forms?
Morning, my name is Mulika. My question is, how does social cultural issues, the way Kenyans behave, the way we're raised and all of that, how does it affect businesses, and what can you do, what strategies can you put in place to ensure that from those social cultural issues you can be able to get good employees or channel their energies to gain success in business?
Right, thank you for the question. So around appraisals, if you look at teams like Google, of course not a good example, the question is, what is the employee supposed to achieve? In Google, for example, develop a product, do user testing, go live. So going live is the success, is the picture of success. So you first define that, and you could decide the regularity of it based on the outcome. So for example, I want to deliver a policy that affects the strategy of my business. So whilst it's one of the key deliverables of my team, I'm not going to wait until end of year to review it, because it's not going to add any value. So based on what is it you're trying to achieve? when is it you want to achieve it? If it's quarterly, then you have to review it much more often than an annual deliverable, for example. Appraisals are losing a little bit of the popularity because they come after the effect, which is what we call a lag measure. Tushaanguka already, then you're telling us that. We want now to work on lead measures, consistently saying, this is a measure we can predict, we can influence, before we get to the end where we already all know that we have failed. So the regularity will be dependent on the deliverable, but critically is to appreciate what is it you're trying to deliver through the people. So that clarity is what is important. Number two, as teams have shown, the Aristotle project that was done by Google, actually you should read up on it, really says delivery of great deliverables comes through projects. So you deliver through projects, little projects. So we want to become ISO certified. Just create a project that arrives there, because the whirlwind, which is the everyday work, continues, and it can usually overwhelm the most important goal. So you segment them that way. On the issue of socio-cultural issues, of course, contextualizing all these good things is very critical. So AI is a perfect example. You want AI in an audit firm of auditors. Okay, my understanding of auditors is they're all boring. But you want AI, for example, there. So you see, it's going to be a much more uphill task than if you were to introduce it, for example, in Stanford, where everyone's cool. Okay, so you can see the difference. So contextualizing is important. However, the objective does not change context. We are supposed to deliver oxygen, right? Whether you as a Kenyan are peculiar or not, oxygen must be delivered. So focus on the objective. The people shall align. Don't focus on the people too much. And that's why I'm a bit averse to all these conversations about Gen X, Gen Y, Gen Ws. The work doesn't gen. The work remains work. So please organize selves to generate the work. That's what I'm saying.
Thank you so much. I have learned something. So, I don't know if you guys ever worked under supervisors who, if you rubbed shoulders or created friction with your supervisor because you're not agreeing on something, they would just wait for the end of the quarter during the appraisal. You call it lead what? Lead measures. That is the way to go. Then again, lead measures helps you not to carry along slaves. You do not have to waste too much time. Thank you so much for that response. I'll come here. I think this table is supposed to ask Dr. Wali.
Hello. So yes, we have two questions for Dr. Wali. So the first one is around, of course, your topic was about ethics and governance. So the main thing is, as a person of integrity, how do you enforce and foster good culture in your circle of influence? So your staff and the society at large. So you're doing good, but how do you make sure that's enforced? And then the second thing, what do you do if you're a person of integrity, but you don't make the decision by yourself in the team, right? So you are a CEO, there's the board, they're telling you this is the bottom line, you know how to do things right, but the pressure is to do something else. What should you do? Thank you.
Thank you so much. How do you enforce integrity? No one can. It's something that you must believe that it's the right thing to do, and you have to accept it, you have to inculcate it in yourself. It's a change of mindset from what it is and what it should be. But it starts with me. It starts with you. You got to live as an example. If in your organization you say we do not pay handouts to win tenders, you got to live by it. Because that's what you believe is the right thing to do. And automatically your team will read your mind, they'll read your body language, and they'll follow you through. And those that don't will fall through anyway. I mean, in my organization, we have 1 or 2, 3 guys who actually walked away because they believed that, it's very difficult for me to survive here because then my values and my work ethics clashes with the principles of the organization. And they didn't have to be pushed, they walked away. They said, I'd rather, be who I am with my weaknesses then improve myself and cooperate. So it's not something that you should force, because then you are likely to get resistance and you might not achieve your desired objective. It's something that you keep reminding each other, and the best way of reminding each other is being yourself, walking the policy and walking the behavior, and of course then incorporating them in the company's policies and regulations, and so that everybody is clear about what is the behavior pattern expected in the organization. And if you do ABCD, then probably you have a first warning, or if it's really gross, and probably it's a dismissal. So, every act, every society, every structure needs to have some sort of guidelines. If we don't have laws and regulations, then we probably live in a jungle. So you must respect those ones, and you will have a more peaceful working environment. The second one was, what if my values as a CEO clashes with that of the board or the investment team? The easier way is to walk away and explain yourself. That if they don't understand you, especially if you know it's the right thing to do, if they don't understand you, walk away. So it's either you get sucked in or you walk away. But if your willpower is strong and you don't have mortgages and house loans, then you can walk away. Respectfully, you don't have to fight and abuse, and respectfully just say, look guys, thank you for giving me the opportunity. I think I'm up to the challenge, but our values clash. Okay. Personally, I've experienced that. When you have a very passionate and strong founder, and the founder has some behavior patterns that you feel clash with you, the best thing is discuss openly. As I mentioned earlier, communication is key to unlock a lot of issues. Speak up, don't shy away. I'd rather say it than regret it. Or seek some help. Get a powerful board member, get a buy-in from him or her, so that him or her can speak to the fellow colleagues and explain your viewpoint. Joe will tell you, having worked at very senior organizations, that organization politics is a reality. You got to sometimes play that. There's some battles you don't want to fight, some battles that are worth fighting. So you might get some bruises and injuries, but was it worth it? Absolutely. So again, it's a matter of communication, it's a matter of how you explain yourself, it's a matter of getting a buy-in. But bottom line is, I will not compromise or bend my rules because you are the board member or the shareholder, especially if it's the right thing to do. Thank you.
Thank you. That is very powerful. I totally agree with you. I think the way they say you can never choose your boss, but you are your own brand and you gotta believe in what you believe in. So thank you for that. This one is for Liz.
Hi Liz.
Hello.
Hi. So about disruption in the workforce, we had a question. We're in healthcare, so we'll tailor our question to healthcare. With the rise of remote work and flexible office spaces, how do you see the future of healthcare professionals, especially those in admin, telemedicine and support services, adopting to this shift? Could service office models play a role in improving healthcare delivery, collaboration and patient access? Thank you.
Great question. Big one. Yeah. Wonderful question. Wow, big one. I probably won't do the answer justice, but there's so much. Obviously, technology plays a huge role. I'm not sure how much Hautele is using technology, but I know other healthcare providers who are really using AI and other technology platforms that allow for very fast patient services, patient recovery, and I think in terms of the flexibility bringing into, I'm thinking it from a cohesive perspective or a shared workspace provider, bringing healthcare into the workplace workplace so that people can enhance their wellness and use the services rather than, oh, I have to go and make the time for it. Oh, I don't have time. I mean, my son hasn't been to the dentist this year because I just haven't made the time from work to do it. But if there was some way for healthcare providers to be integrated into that, which is partly what Kofisi is trying to do in terms of wellness and bringing wellness into the workplace, making it a more productive place for employees so that you can take advantage of those benefits to be able to incorporate your life wellness and not just separate work from life.
Dr. Wali, in short, the team is saying they'd like to be working from home every once in a while.
Very good.
All right.
Could I just make a comment? In one of my visits to one of these mini conferences that I went to, I met Larry Ellison. He's the founder of Oracle. And it was a very privileged meeting, but their attitude to life is quite interesting. And he was just saying, he was then talking about AI then. This was 6 years ago. And he said, in his estimation, and I'm sure a lot of doctors will look at me, because remember I was telling you about media where now the technology has allowed the newspaper to be treated the way a supermarket was. And he said in his estimation, general basic medicine will be exactly the same in a while. He says from a technology point of view, they've already solved the problem. The issue is a moral. So today, what this is, he was saying, think about it. There is enough technology, and if there's not, there's technology that might be able to do an X-ray on your phone, might be able to then put that into some database, go check and match it to whatever, come up with a prescription, send that prescription to a pharmacist, and some drone will deliver it to your house. Technically, the doctor is not involved in the process, and his argument was he thinks that technology and AI is likely to get it right more efficiently than a human being. Now, I looked at him in absolute shock, but to think about it, it's not implausible that that happens.
Yes.
So back to your question, and I just thought all these friends of mine who spent how many years becoming doctors. So what he was saying is the doctors now will need to up their game as to what it is they're doing and what they're studying. He says technically, you can operate sitting in Nairobi and somebody's in New York using technology today. So when you start thinking about all those things, it's possible. And one of the former MDs of KQ once said something that I'd never thought of. He says that he reckons that in the next 5 years, in any plane, there will be a pilot and a dog. And the job of the dog is to bite the pilot in case the pilot tries to touch anything on the dashboard. Because what he was saying is technically, you do not need a human being to fly an aeroplane. That's what drones do. That's what the Americans are doing and bombing everybody. So this thing called technology and how things can change. The question is there any one of us here who would board an aeroplane if you're told there's no pilot? It's a moral question, not a technical one. And unfortunately, he was saying that's where the world, in his estimation, is going. And he says, please listen to me, because when we started talking about the cloud, everybody thought we were mad. Today we think it's normal.
That is quite something. But now, Joe, you've answered a question I was going to ask you later. But I'll change it a little bit. But that is quite interesting, because it still blows my mind how even AI, the systems, if you're to read the story of DeepSeek, the information that is creating the system is being fed by human brain. It's the level of investment that we've opted to put into technology more than human that is now causing issues. But we will cross that bridge. She wanted to ask something else.
Not to ask, just to, he keeps saying, I kept forgetting to say my name. So my name is Harriet. Just to add to what you were saying, just a brief comment, and sorry for taking your time. I believe it is important in the current economy that we are in to celebrate good news. So to your point about AI, Kenya has very forward-thinking people. So even in healthcare, the good news is we're already using a lot of AI and also other embedded technologies in healthcare. Like now what has happened is there are quite a number of companies that have set up telemedicine companies, a lot of radiology. I know quite a number of companies that are set up where an image can be taken anywhere around the country, whether it's an X-ray, MRI, CT scan, it will be uploaded and a radiologist seated anywhere will immediately interpret it and send a report. So that is allowing access very quickly. What we're doing with Hewatele, at some point we'll get to a point where we can monitor oxygen all over the country so that no one would be able to lack oxygen and plan around the booking for that. But we are very forward thinking as a country. Thank you for what you have mentioned. At least a lot of the younger doctors are realizing what the challenge is. The doctors, my class and above, they're still a bit stuck, but we are navigating. The younger ones have seen, they're embracing it. So it's becoming easier. This technology that has just been introduced where imaging can be used to pinpoint masses, tumor masses, etc., and the reading of those masses is much better, so diagnosis is becoming much faster. So a lot of these ones, a lot of the younger doctors are embracing this. The challenge we have as a community is when you go to see a doctor and you see a doctor referring to a system, you imagine that they don't know what they're doing. This doctor is taking shortcuts, so we still have that. And then also as a populace, we still believe that when you're unwell, you need a doctor to touch you. That's why telemedicine hasn't really taken off in Kenya, because we tried. I used to consult for Safaricom in healthcare. One of the biggest challenges we met, even as we were trying to implement telemedicine, was yes, you can say all that, you can talk, etc., but the patient will still go in front of a healthcare practitioner to be seen, to be touched, to be talked to. So we are adopting to your point.
My wife is saved from a gyno now.
No, thank you for that clarification, because it gives a lot of us comfort. There are times you go to, especially A&E, whether it's at the Kano or Nairobi hospital, and you find a 20-something-year-old doctor, and the guy he's listening to you but stuck on the computer, and you're wondering, is this guy googling my symptoms or what is he doing? But yeah, thank you for that. I appreciate it. Last question from this table to Joe.
Thank you. Joe, you concluded your discussion in the morning with the unpredictable regulation environment, and now we can't tell what the government is thinking about a business or a sector. And we all know that Kenya's private sector in drivers of government thinking. I mean the annual presidential roundtable with the presidency, and we also saw last year was the gains that private sector was able to achieve from the finance bill 2024 by having almost 13 taxes dropped before the protests. By the time we went to the protests, about between 13 to 16, including the ridiculous car tax, had been dropped off the bill, having the capital private sector having had a sitting with the president. But we also saw in the making of that bill how the cabals kicked in. And with the initial introduction of those taxes, the cabals were then reaching out to the private sector players and saying, if you give us about $1 billion, half a billion to $1 billion more, we are willing to drop this tax. And so there was negotiation outside of the framework where the cabals were making money, trading, by deliberately imposing or proposing certain taxes. Not because they're useful, but because they're a way of causing panic. And then when you cause panic, you then extend the left hand and say, we can drop this tax. And if you oil our hands. Now, my question then is, how might the private sector use the opportunity that they have with the president or the presidency when they do meet to then circumvent, two things, circumvent the cabals, but also advise the presidency on the need for predictability and how unpredictability then hurts the economy and eventually hurts the revenue that the government is seeking to raise, because then companies aren't quite sure of what to plan. So is there a way that the private sector can use that influence, that space, briefly, to then make things happen? Or are the cabals going to have a ball anyway, either way?
Wow. It's an interesting question, and it relates to what Zuli was saying earlier. I hope Zuli is, sure people call you Zuli, I suspect. Was saying earlier. I think from where I sit, the corrupt people in this country, I'll call them for what they are not strangers. It's your brother. You, and this is how I've always run businesses, and managers who work with me. You must have an idea of what it is in the regulations that affect what you do. And that is a KPI. It should be of whatever it is. So if you happen to be doing HR, for heaven's sake, understand the laws and know what they are. If you look at the products I've sold, tobacco, alcohol, then I went to the media. Before that I sold soap. I started off at Unilever. And then I sold fuel, and then I eventually, the one that I always miss, jokingly says I missed was guns, given the nature of the products that I sold, ammunition. But the point I'm making is, the people in the organization must understand the environment. And this is why I say it's the most underrated thing in my mind about business. You do not influence it at the end, you influence it at the beginning. So, she sits in, is it HRM or IHRM? She sits in, is it HRM or IHRM? Do not ignore them. Make sure you're represented there. Of course, you can't represent, it's also expensive to be in all these things. But your employees are members. Make sure they are in that organization. The accountants, make sure. Sometimes you see your employee standing to be the chair of the accountants, and you think that it's a silly idea because they're not going to work. Let them be, because that's how you influence policy. If you happen to be, the doctors, for instance, one of the biggest mistakes they made is, as we were doing the 2010 Constitution, they were treating us. And they forgot to be at Bomas. What happened? Today, doctors sitting in district hospitals in CI and Embu and what, have MCAs telling them what they should do. The teachers made sure the TSC was removed, and it's still a national thing. Doctors should have done the same, but they were busy treating us, and they're clever guys. They got caught up. Reversing that whole thing is a mess, and that's why they are permanently in the streets. And it's one of the biggest tragedies about our country today, and that's why doctors are underpaid. We know how long it takes to make a doctor, and then some guy who you're not too sure what he achieved in school is busy telling the doctors what he should earn, what time he should come to work, how it should be done, what equipment they have. The point I'm making is, influencing policy is a strategic part of any business and must be inculcated in organizations right from when people are junior. So that by the time laws are hit in parliament or whatever, you have had an influence. And that's the way I think you resolve issues. For instance, today we are having the issue about banks are not lowering the interest rates to the level. Our CEO has got to make sure they are at the governor's desk and influencing it before it becomes law. My argument always is, by the time a law is getting to Parliament and about to be passed, if it's negative, it's already too late. So my advice is spread the love and pain of lobbying and policy making through your team. And I'll tell you, in my personal experience, it's the hardest thing to do and one of the hardest skills to acquire. Very few of us want to go to government offices because you think ministers might not be seen. I told you earlier, I went and I sat in Thuge's office, MDKBL, told the PA, tell him I'm not leaving. Because if you don't do that, policy affects you. For instance, I had already identified the risk at KBL about the risk to the tax thing. The organization, however, felt that over the years, we had gotten away with it, and therefore they were not sort of allowing me to lobby. But privately, I know these guys. The advisors of the president, they're not strangers. I know them personally. We work together. Most of these guys, and they know about the fact that predictive environment. Adan was one of the brightest guys in our university. He got a first class. So they're not dumb. As far as the issue about cabals, my view is what these Gen Zs are doing is the best thing that happens. It's what nation tries to do. When you shine light on an issue, it's the biggest disincentive to the wrong thing happening. God bless the guy who received 20 million. I've been told the Gen Zs are going to church on Sunday. I don't know what's going on. But I always, sorry, I'm going to talk about nation a bit. I remember the time when the containers were being bought, and it was in the headline. Yes, a lot of the people who were involved are personal friends. They call me, tell me a lot of things. I tell them, hold on a second. You tell me that you don't know, and you expect me to help you, I'm sorry. It's going to stay on the front page of the newspaper until something happens. You don't always solve problems, but they don't repeat it. So if you shine light on things that are wrong, the likelihood that we will be a better society is higher. I'm not saying we solve problems. I wouldn't like to be the CS in health today. I mean, you saw, for those of you who saw the interview, the way it went yesterday. I wish I were. But so my view is more make it a way of life rather than waiting for the other. By the time you see the president, by the time you're going to the president, and by the way, I can give you many stories, but we will have a drink and we'll talk. I have had to go see presidents because, not necessarily in the public forum, but because something is bugging us. And I pulled every damn string I could find to make sure my message got there. Sometimes you win, sometimes you lose. But you do your best and start early.
Wow, thank you so much. That is really, really
sorry, before I finish. Even in counties, I mean, you know, one of the joys about coming to things like this is to hear that he's raised a lot of money and he's investing in a product that will help health. I sit on the board of a small company, you might not believe it, that has grown 4x in the last 5 years in Kenya. So people are investing. We cannot afford to give up. I don't know any other country. I had the opportunity to live overseas. I came back home. And up till today, I do not believe it's a mistake. And I think the side of my tummy tells you I'm okay. I have other headaches. Thank God, I think I finished the mortgage and the whatever one. But the car loan one, but she says it's not a joke. You've got to be courageous. Otherwise, we don't solve these problems. You don't fix the country. And it's our country, we only have one. Let's do what we can.
Thank you. That is quite powerful. I think as we try to wind up, maybe just one more question for each panel member and a parting shot in probably a minute. And allow me to start with, I think I'll start with Japheth. I think this is the first forum I've ever attended where nobody has said anything about ESGs, and yet it's been the talk of town. Maybe things will change where Trump is concerned with ESGs. They'll reduce from 30 to maybe 10, we don't know. But Japheth, when you talk about risk mitigation from where you're sitting in relation to ESGs, do you have a framework that accommodates that? Or sometimes you sit back and say, unajua nini, wacha niwachane na hiyo maneno kwanza?
Thanks. So, ESG again, as I mentioned earlier, has stopped being a buzzword. For the last 5 years, it was a buzzword. So people you could hear it in boardrooms, in meetings, and no concrete actions being taken to actualize that. But over and over, and even specifically in our industry, we are seeing very deliberate efforts for people to, have a framework on ESG, and specifically. So if I talk about Old Mutual, what we're doing, and also our industry is we now developing solutions that are now ESG compliant. Or speaking to climate risk, because as I said, I did not want to bore the audience with technical insurance risk, but climate risk is a big one for us. For example, you see natural disasters that were initially not part of our headache. Last year we had floodings in Kenya, which as an industry is an insurance risk. We take up that risk, and we paid out a substantial amount of claims, upwards of 2 billion. Globally, you just saw California fires, and all those are insurance risk, which as a result of natural disasters, and specifically climate risk. So to your question, yes, we have a framework that we are driving at Old Mutual that speaks to ESG, but we've gone further to also then develop solutions that addresses the climate challenges that we're seeing, and tied to, of course, the issues around governance is part of the business that we do, environment, and also social impact. So the environment part is where we have climate-related solutions that try to address this climate risk and climate challenges that we see.
All right, thank you. That's very, very good to hear. I think I'll move to Dr. Wali. You were tackling a very critical conversation around governance and ethics. I did not hear anything around boards. Especially where family businesses, people sitting here participate in board conversations, they present to boards. But sometimes there are a lot of things that guys summarize as politics, especially where families are related, where you cannot oppose the board. But you had also mentioned about rubbing shoulders the right way. But what does that conversation look like? In under 1 minute, what does that conversation look like at the board level?
Absolutely critical. Boards provide strategic direction to the organization, so you need to have a bunch of guys who know what they're saying. They can, constructively add value to the organization. And if you have diverging views, then the results is visible. I mean, what is the supermarket that went down? Tuskys is a good example. The retail sector has really suffered. Nakumatt is one of them. I think the father and son were not in agreement in terms of divestiture. There was a British company that wanted to buy a 20% stake in Nakumatt, and they couldn't come to an agreement because the father had divergent views and the son had a different view of the daughter. And the rest is history. with 65 branches in East Africa and 6,000 employees and I don't know how many suppliers, it went down. So boards are important. We need to be very careful on what is the composition of the board. They must be guided by ethics and values and principles. They must be technically competent in the area of their business. If it's retail, then they need to have a good understanding of what the retail industry looks like and what value addition they can bring on the table. Family businesses are peculiar. They are at least coming out of the cocoons now to privatize. I think NIBUS is one of them that brought in the Mauritian investors, which is brilliant. You see where NIBUS is going, it's growing now with added capital, but they let go. If you have a very passionate founder who doesn't want to let go, then you're in trouble. And we've come across that as professionals in our space. So family businesses have a huge potential. In the US, they have these family businesses that are growing on very well, like Johnson & Johnson, etc. It's a very old family business that is growing very well because they respected that, look, we don't have all the knowledge, let's professionalize, let's bring in experts, and let's grow. So, and again, if you want to grow organically, then you have to start from the grassroots. Yeah.
All right. Thank you for that. Liz, are we safe as employers, especially where disruptive technologies and emerging new business models are concerned? What should we be looking out for?
Are we safe?
Yes.
Safety starts with us, doesn't it? I'm learning my lessons today. It's a great question. I think, yes, if we can, as leaders, jump to action and really think about a lot of the topics that we've been talking about today. So taking action, not just sitting back and watching things play out in front of us, but be curious. Make sure you're fostering that curiosity in your team, being curious to test the technology that's out there today, and being curious to read about how other organizations are using it as well. And I think that curiosity will serve the businesses well in order to adapt.
All right. Mary, you talked about leadership pipelines. You've mentioned conversations around mentoring, succession, and all that. But when you think about how times are changing, how do you make sure that you're able to marry the young and the old seamlessly to make sure that your pipelines remain healthy? Because there's always been a challenge. So with the young thinking very differently and the old refusing to move away from what they've been doing in the seats they are occupying. What would the strategy around that then be?
I think what you're seeing in the workplace now is the generations are closer and closer to each other. You don't have a very old and very young, unless it's government. So I guess you're able to shadow them, alongside each other as the time moves on. I'm not able to answer that question because I don't have the context in my head. But I think every organization will structure differently when it comes to succession planning. And sometimes succession planning is not about old age. It could just be around a new way of work. So it's not about exiting the persons. It's really about starting to do things differently. So you can create different channels to move that way. Yeah.
Thank you. But of course, as you do that, then it's always good to be guided by a HR practitioner specialist. All right. Fantastic. Going professional is the way that we need to do. And then I think finally, for my final question, you mentioned something very interesting when you talked about a future aeroplane that might have a pilot sitting in and a dog on the other side. And practically some of these things have happened in a very different way. I think the first time when the Boeing 787 came out, the first test that was done had 6 pilots, but the plane was fully digitized and technologically enabled. But at one point, the plane could not land. And it took a 72-year-old pilot who had retired to land the plane after taking it manually and moving it away from the digital space. So the conversation of tacit and intrinsic knowledge while embracing technology and AI and all those things. Joe, what did you take?
I'll give you a philosophical answer. You know, if you told me today that my phone is going to hang and therefore I shouldn't carry it, what would my answer be? Still carry it. Technology is what it is. It fails sometimes. It works a lot of the times. When it fails, there's a consequence. What you then try to do, what the world is trying to do, is put, what's the phrase? Not a contingency. In the bank today, there is a backup for a backup and a backup to make sure that if this, I can't remember what the phrase is, but at no point should you not be able to access your money. Do systems fail? Yes, they do. Redundancy, that's the word I was looking for. So, I'm sure because of what happened to that Boeing, they've sorted out the problem. So there's a backup to a backup. And let me give you an example. And if you're not curious and you're not ready to take risks, then you will be stuck. One of the first trainings I attended as a young manager when I was in Unilever was we watched 2 movies, and for me that was quite fascinating. We've flown all the way to London to watch movies. And one of them was about Apollo 13, and one of them was about the race to the North Pole. So there was this Scottish guy, Scott and Ramondson, if I remember, the Norwegian guy who's going to get first. But I'll stick to the Apollo 13, and I like using that phrase. When the thing went out, and you can watch the movie. At some point, the guy says, we've lost these guys, we can't bring them back. The Houston, we have a problem story. And this guy called Krantz, who was running the whole show, he simply said, we've never lost an American in space. No American is going to die during my watch. We've got to bring these guys back. Get me the cleverest Americans we have into this room. Anyway, the guy who solved the problem and brought them back was the youngest, was a 21-year-old MIT mathematics PhD graduate. The point I'm making is, it's a trait that I have in leadership. You have to try things. However, build redundancies and contingencies. So if you want to launch a new brand and you're not too sure, go into some remote part, brand small, make the mistakes there, learn, then scale it. And that's why, what were those guys doing, the 6 pilots? They were doing a pilot before they released it too. So I think sometimes, she said it, and sometimes these things come across as you're making a statement. This phrase called courage. Lives are lost. Does that stop human beings? I keep thinking about doctors. Can you imagine the first guy to do an operation? There was no anesthesia. The problem is in this stomach. We've got to cut it open. Drug the guy, give him a lot of alcohol, put a stick, but we are cutting him open. Might be a few guys died. Not a might be. I'm sure the guys died. But what happened? They learned. Over time, today, if you tell somebody you're going for an operation, we'll be surprised if you don't come back. We think it's normal. So, the question you asked was about intrinsic, and it's a balance. It's a balance, and human beings will learn, and I am absolutely convinced in our ability to improve things. I remember the first time I disagreed with my father about this cultural, somebody asked a question. When I first disagreed with him, I was 35 when I told him, no, I'm not going to do that. For Europeans, they find that strange, because people disagree with their fathers when they're 17. And I remember telling him, Dad, this is my thinking, but remember you spent a fortune sending me to university overseas so that I can come back and improve on the family. And then I told him what I wanted, and I told him I'm now a senior manager in BAT. I had a budget of, I think, 800 million, and he was looking at me, what's wrong with this young man? But from that day, the question then became, I'm thinking of doing this, what are your thoughts? So for me, it's a balance. And I'm never scared to try things. Courage, as she said it, is an integral part of human growth. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Let's give a round of applause to the panelists. Thank you so much. I think before you exit the stage, there's a bag of goodies that have been prepared for the panelists. So I'll ask Eric, CEO, Managing Partner for PAC, to just come and present them to our panelists. I think it would be good for you to be outstanding for this one. Paparazzi, is our paparazzi here or taking a break? I don't know, which one do you want us to start with? Okay, let's start with Hewatele. They're ready. I think you can present from. Huh? Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying. But I know they're not going to present it to you in any way. So you can come up the podium. Let me see one. I will tell you, there's a small oxygen cylinder. Thank you. Two more. Thank you. Can you just do a group, please do a group photo with the gifts, please? Important. Let's have here, please.
Need to be careful. They have to be clear.
Governance.
I don't want to.
All right, thank you. And then I think the next batch is from PAC. I think for all of you here. I think there was one that was meant for Carol, but she's not here. Let me help you with this. We hope we got the shoe size right. All right, a photo with the gifts. A photo with the gifts. Yeah, courage. Thank you so much. At this point, I want to request the panelists to exit the stage, but as they exit the stage, I'd like... All right, thank you. As they're taking their seats, I'd like to just request Japheth to give us a closing remark in another 1 minute. Then we
Thank you. It's been a crowded morning in terms of the different message and leadership bits that we have received from the panelists, and want to thank every one of us for being attentive since 8 o'clock when we reached here. I'm leaving here very challenged. I think maybe the one thing I'm taking out is courage. And Joe, the one thing I'm taking out is dare to make mistakes, because that's the only way you'll be able to innovate. And so, you know, the integrity part, you called it out quite well, that it has to be innate in us. And Liz, of course, the challenging workplace risk that we face. But mine is just, again, to thank everyone, both the panelists and the participants. This has been quite insightful session. And to Eric, of the managing partner, and your team, thanks for putting all this together. Until we meet the next time, because I know this is an annual event, but you can think to make it more frequent, so that that regularity we talked about as we share experiences. Thank you very much, and have a great day ahead.
Thank you so much. At this point, allow me to just invite Eric to close, wrap up, and then we can call it a day.
Thank you very much. You can almost see how I'm rushing so that we can close. To our panelists, we really do appreciate your time. It's rare to find very busy people like you coming and committing a whole day. And of course, I want to clarify, we paid none of the panelists. And we've had panelists joining us each year because they are paid to speak. But for most of our events, they share their knowledge, their experiences, and at the end of the day, we look forward to a better country. If you're looking for another country, apart from Kenya, then think twice. You'll only go there and come back like Joe and anyone else who's worked out of the country. Because east or west, home is best. We live in a country that is yearning for transformation, not change. We live at a time when we need to do things right. But as the panelists have called it out, we need to hold our leaders, should I say politicians, not leaders, accountable, because they set the policies and the people they hire impact our lives. The businesses we do today are struggling because a non-predictable business environment. You sleep, tomorrow there's a levy. You sleep, tomorrow there's a tax regime that has been introduced. Even KRA itself, they are confused on how to apply it in their own system. I think 2 months ago, many companies could not file their returns. But again, they have penalized the companies for late returns. We live at a time when politicians change their political stances and their value systems in seconds, because someone else can pay better than the opponents. So standing on the matters of integrity, like what Dr. Wali was talking about earlier, you'd rather go to bed hungry, take some warm water, but at least you know one thing, you are not going to bed worried of who is going to take your life away. We bring these events each year, and we are very happy that this is the first time for our events that we actually had partners, Old Mutual coming through to work with us, Hewa Tele coming through to work with us, and then we have Optiven. Thank you, Japheth, even as you walk away, because we know we have taken all the time, and we appreciate every partner and every participant who joined us today and this event. We wish you well, and we will see you bigger and better in 2026. We'll have a better forum as well. We have some thoughts around it, and we'll be communicating how we're going to do it. Whether it's a dinner, whether it's frequent, as Japheth is saying, but we will come back to you and tell you when do we have these conversations. Remember, when you talk about culture, we have a partnership with the Culture Factor Group, and we do culture certification each year, and this year we have it in September. for organizations, and whoever is interested, we have it in our website. You can check on the event. It's not the time that we can go through that. And of course, we want to carry these conversations to Dubai with the CEOs in September, so that we have the conversations we are having here. It's not going to be a training. It's actually a workshop of CEOs sharing ideas, networking, and talking with each other to understand what are these challenges you are facing in the organization, how can you do it? The things of future in the workplaces, how then do you secure your workforce? How do you ensure that there is that bit of succession happening? Not because someone has died, not because someone is retiring, but how do you continuously manage that risk of people moving from, people transitioning? Transitioning is not just because of death. Ladies and gentlemen, we do wish you a very good day. We thank you for your attendance. May God bless you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I think you heard what Erica said. We don't have to wait for Bonfire to go to Dubai in September. We are going for a much stronger cause, okay? So Bonfire Adventures Kano Kidogo. This is a park certification program all the way to Dubai, and we shall be here and waiting to carry it along with everybody else. So thank you so much. May you all have a blessed afternoon, and wishing you blessings upon blessings in all your adventures and ventures. Thank you so much for being patient with us. All right, bye. So the table for Mike is going and automatically.
It is important in the current economy that we are in to celebrate good news. So to your point about AI, Kenya has very forward-thinking people. So even in healthcare, the good news is we're already using a lot of AI and also other embedded technologies in healthcare. Like now what has happened is there are quite a number of companies that have set up telemedicine companies, a lot of radiology. I know quite a number of companies that are set up where an image can be taken anywhere around the country, whether it's an X-ray, MRI, CT scan, it will be uploaded and a radiologist seated anywhere will immediately interpret it and send a report. So that is allowing access very quickly. What we're doing with Hewatele, at some point we'll get to a point where we can monitor oxygen all over the country so that no one would be able to lack oxygen and plan around the booking for that. But we are very forward thinking as a country. Thank you for what you have mentioned. At least a lot of the younger doctors are realizing what the challenge is. The doctors, my class and above, we're still a bit stuck, but we are navigating. The younger ones have seen, they're embracing it. So it's becoming easier. This technology that has just been introduced where imaging can be used to pinpoint masses, tumor masses, etc., and the reading of those masses is much better, so diagnosis is becoming much faster. So a lot of these ones, a lot of the younger doctors are embracing this. The challenge we have as a community is when you go to see a doctor and you see a doctor referring to a system, you imagine that they don't know what they're doing. This doctor is taking shortcuts, so we still have that. And then also as a populace, we still believe that when you're unwell, you need a doctor to touch you. That's why telemedicine hasn't really taken off in Kenya, because we tried. I used to consult for Safaricom in healthcare. One of the biggest challenges we met, even as we were trying to implement telemedicine, was yes, you can say all that, you can talk, etc., but the patient will still go in front of a healthcare practitioner to be seen, to be touched, to be talked to. So we are adopting to your point.
My wife is saved from a gyno now.
No, thank you for that clarification, because it gives a lot of us comfort. There are times you go to, especially A&E, whether it's like a Kano or Nairobi hospital, and you find a 20-something-year-old doctor, and the guy he's listening to you but stuck on the computer, and you're wondering, is this guy Googling my symptoms or what is he doing? But yeah, thank you for that. I appreciate it. Last question from this table to Joe.
Thank you. Joe, you concluded your discussion in the morning with the unpredictable regulation environment, and now we can't tell what the government is thinking about a business or a sector. And we all know that Kenya's private sector in drivers of government thinking. I mean, the annual presidential roundtable with the president, with the presidency, and we also saw last year was the gains that private sector was able to achieve from the finance in 2024 by having almost 13 taxes dropped before the protests. By the time we went to the protests, about between 13 to 16, including the ridiculous car tax, had been dropped off the bill, having the capital private sector having had a sitting with the president. But we also saw in the making of that bill how the cabals kicked in. And with the initial introduction of those taxes, the cabals were then reaching out to the private sector players and saying, if you give us about $1 billion, half a billion to $1 billion more, we are willing to drop this tax. And so there was negotiation outside of the framework where the cabals were making money, trading, by deliberately imposing or proposing certain taxes, not because they're useful, but because they're a way of causing panic. And then when you cause panic, you then extend the left hand and say, we can drop this tax, and if you oil our hands. Now, my question then is, how might the private sector use the opportunity that they have with the president or the presidency when they do meet to then circumvent two things: circumvent the cabals, but also advise the presidency on the need for predictability and how unpredictability then hurts the economy and eventually hurts the revenue that the government is seeking to raise, because then companies aren't quite sure of what to plan. So, is there a way that the private sector can use that influence, that space, briefly, to then way things happen, or are the cabals going to have a ball anyway, either way?
Wow. It's an interesting question, and it relates to what Zuli was saying earlier. I hope Zuli is, sure people call you Zuli, I suspect. Was saying earlier. I think from where I sit, the corrupt people in this country, I'll call them for what they are not strangers. It's your brother, you, and this is how I've always run businesses, and managers who work with me. You must have an idea of what it is in the regulations that affect what you do. And that is a KPI. It should be of whatever it is. So if you happen to be doing HR, for heaven's sake, understand the laws and know what they are. If you look at the products I've sold, tobacco, alcohol, then I went to the media. Before that I sold soap. I started off at Unilever. And then I sold fuel, and then I eventually, the one that I always jokingly say I missed was guns, given the nature of the products that I sold, ammunition. But the point I'm making is, the people in the organization must understand the environment. And this is why I say it's the most underrated thing in my mind about business. You do not influence it at the end, you influence it at the beginning. So, she sits in, is it HRM or IHRM? She sits in, is it HRM or IHRM? Do not ignore them. Make sure you're represented there. Of course, you can't represent, it's also expensive to be in all these things. But your employees are members. Make sure they are in that organization. The accountants, make sure. Sometimes you see your employee standing to be the chair of the accountants, and you think that it's a silly idea because they're not going to work. Let them be, because that's how you influence policy. If you happen to be, the doctors, for instance, one of the biggest mistakes they made is, as we were doing the 2010 Constitution, they were treating us. And they forgot to be at Bomas. What happened? Today, doctors sitting in district hospitals in CI and Embu and what, have MCAs telling them what they should do. The teachers made sure the TSC was removed, and it's still a national thing. Doctors should have done the same, but they were busy treating us, and they're clever guys. They got caught up. Reversing that whole thing is a mess. And that's why they are permanently in the streets. And it's one of the biggest tragedies about our country today. And that's why doctors are underpaid. We know how long it takes to make a doctor. And then some guy who you're not too sure what he achieved in school is busy telling the doctors what he should earn, what time he should come to work, how it should be done, what equipment they have. The point I'm making is, influencing policy is a strategic part of any business and must be inculcated in organizations right from when people are junior. So that by the time laws are hit in parliament or whatever, you have had an influence. And that's the way I think you resolve issues. For instance, today we are having the issue about banks are not lowering the interest rates to the level. Our CEO has got to make sure they are at the governor's desk and influencing it before it becomes law. My argument always is, by the time a law is getting to parliament and about to be passed, if it's negative, it's already too late. So my advice is, spread the love and pain of lobbying and policy making through your team. And I'll tell you, in my personal experience, it's the hardest thing to do and one of the hardest skills to acquire. Very few of us want to go to government offices because you think ministers might not be seen. I told you earlier, I went and I sat in Thuge's office, MDKBL, told the PA, tell him I'm not leaving. Because if you don't do that, policy affects you. For instance, I had already